Have you ever felt that fire inside you, a burning desire to achieve something great, but no matter what you do, it seems just out of reach? That's not failure speaking. That's opportunity knocking, waiting for you to answer. Today, I'm going to tell you a story about ambition, resilience, and the power of the human spirit, the kind of story that could change the way you see yourself and your future. Story begins. Once there was a young man named David. David grew up in a small town where opportunities were scarce, and dreams were often whispered but rarely pursued. From a young age, he knew he wanted more knowledge, more freedom, more impact, but every day seemed to remind him of the limits around him. David watched as people around him settled for ordinary lives, trapped in routines, afraid to reach for something bigger. He wanted to rise above that. But desire alone was not enough. Every morning, he woke with the same burning question. How do I turn this dream into reality? He started observing the world with a different lens. He noticed the patterns of success. He read stories of people who had come from nothing and yet achieved greatness. He realized something that would change his life forever. Success is not random. It follows principles, laws, and strategies, principles that anyone willing to learn and act could master. But the first lesson David learned was not in books. It was in silence. He discovered that the world is full of voices, some encouraging, many doubtful. And the more he listened to those who doubted him, the weaker his resolve became. He realized that to grow, he had to guard his mind, his vision, and his dreams. Napoleon Hill said it best. Think twice before you speak. Words have power. Speak your goals to those who have earned the right to hear them. David began to understand that ambition grows in silence. It grows in the quiet corners of the mind where determination is nurtured and fear is confronted. Every day, he would sit quietly, imagining the life he wanted. He saw himself successful, respected, and free. He imagined the people he would help, the impact he would make, and the legacy he would leave. And each night, he went to bed with one thought. I will not let my dream die because of distraction, doubt, or the opinions of others. But desire alone would not take him far. David knew that thoughts, without action, are like seeds that never see the sunlight. He needed a plan, a strategy, a map for his journey. And so he began to act, even in small ways. He took the first steps that no one would notice. But every small step created momentum. He read books on mindset, wealth, and success. He listened to those who had already achieved what he wanted. He wrote down his goals, not to show anyone, but to solidify them in his own mind. He made a promise to himself. His dreams would remain sacred until they were ready to manifest. This was the spark of ambition, the point where desire meets action, and where vision begins to shape reality. David understood that greatness does not announce itself. It grows quietly, like a seed buried in darkness, unseen by the world, until it breaks through the soil. And yet, challenges were already waiting. There would be moments of doubt, moments when the world seemed to conspire against him. But David had discovered the first principle of true success, a burning desire fueled by faith, nurtured in silence, and protected by persistence. Even today, as you listen to this story, think about the seed inside you. What dream have you been whispering to yourself but afraid to share with the world? What fire has been quietly burning in your heart, waiting for your action? That is your spark of ambition, and it's calling you to rise. David's journey was just beginning, but the first step had been taken. The path ahead would test him, challenge him, and stretch him beyond what he thought possible. But with each step, he would grow stronger, wiser, and more unstoppable. Closing for part 1, transition to part 2, and so begins the story of transformation. The spark of ambition has been lit. The question now is, how does one overcome the obstacles that life places in the way of every dream? That's where part 2 begins, the hidden obstacles that will test David's courage, resolve, and the very strength of his spirit. If you want, I can immediately create part 2 so your 6-part 40-minute video continues seamlessly. Do you want me to do that next? Part 2, the hidden obstacles hook. First 30 to 60 seconds. Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try, life keeps throwing roadblocks in your path? That feeling is not a sign of weakness, it's a test. Today, we explore the obstacles that are designed not to stop you, but to shape you into someone unstoppable. Story begins. David had taken the first steps toward his dream, But he quickly discovered that desire alone was not enough. Life, as it often does, tested him with unexpected challenges. His first obstacle was not financial or external, it was internal. Fear whispered in his mind, "What if you fail? What if you're not good enough?" He realized that his biggest enemy was not the world, it was his own doubts. Napoleon Hill taught that success requires a mind free from fear, indecision, and negativity. But the human mind tends to dwell on uncertainty. Every time David faced a choice, fear crept in, slowing his progress, clouding his decisions, and testing his resolve. Then came the external challenges. People who should have supported him questioned his choices. Friends said he was dreaming too big. Colleagues warned him about risks he should avoid. Even family, though well-meaning, projected their own fears onto him, saying, "You can't do that. You'll regret it." Each comment, each doubt cast from others was a hidden obstacle. David realized that not everyone wants you to succeed. Some people fear your growth, some feel threatened, and some simply cannot see beyond their own limitations. Napoleon Hill emphasized the same truth: your environment matters. The company you keep can either lift you or weigh you down. But David refused to let external voices derail his dream. He learned the second secret of success: protect your mind and focus your energy on what you control. He stopped explaining his vision to those who could not understand it. He stopped seeking validation from people who had never built anything themselves. He learned to shield his ambition in silence. Then came failure, the inevitable stumbling block that awaits anyone who dares to pursue greatness. David faced projects that did not succeed, ideas that fell flat, and setbacks that threatened to crush his spirit. But failure, he realized, was not the enemy. It was a teacher. Every failure revealed a lesson he needed to master, a weakness he needed to strengthen, a strategy he needed to adjust. This was the real obstacle, not life's challenges, but how he responded to them. Did he complain? Did he give up? Or did he analyze, learn, and continue moving forward? David chose the path of persistence. Every setback became fuel for his determination. Every closed door forced him to seek a new path. David also discovered the hidden obstacle of time, the one resource that slips away faster than we realize. He saw people around him wasting hours on distractions, gossip, and endless entertainment, while his ambitions required disciplined action. Napoleon Hill's principle became clear: time management is not optional. It is a sacred law of success. He created a daily routine, small actions stacked day by day, each step moving him closer to his vision. And he learned the power of patience. Success is rarely instant. It grows quietly, unseen by others, in the space where persistence meets consistency. And then there were the invisible obstacles: negative thoughts, self-doubt, and fear of judgment. David realized that these inner battles were often louder than the external challenges. If he could master his mind, he could navigate anything life threw at him. He began to meditate, reflect, and speak life into his own goals. He built an inner fortress, a mind disciplined and focused, capable of facing storms without losing direction. Every challenge taught David the same lesson: obstacles are not meant to stop you, they are meant to strengthen you. The moment you see a setback as a threat is the moment you give it power. But the moment you see it as a teacher, you turn the obstacle into fuel. David's story is a reminder to all of us: no dream worth achieving comes without hidden obstacles. Every successful person has faced setbacks, criticism, and doubt. What separates the ordinary from the extraordinary is the ability to persist, to believe in oneself, and to keep moving forward even when the path seems impossible. Closing for Part 2, transition to Part 3. As David continued his journey, he began to understand a deeper truth. Success is not just about facing obstacles, it's about discovering purpose through those obstacles. Each challenge, each setback, each moment of doubt was shaping him into a person capable of handling greatness. In Part 3, we'll explore the awakening of purpose, the moment David discovers the inner power and clarity that will guide every decision, every step, and every dream toward reality. His story shows us that when ambition meets purpose, nothing can stop the determined mind. If you want, I can immediately send Part 3, so your 6-part long-form motivational story continues seamlessly. Do you want me to do that next? Part 3, The Awakening of Purpose. Have you ever wondered why some people keep going, no matter how hard life pushes back? while others give up at the first sign of struggle. The difference isn't talent, luck, or opportunity, it's purpose. Today, we step into the moment where ambition meets clarity, and your life begins to change. Story begins. David had faced fear, doubt, and countless setbacks, but something inside him began to shift. It wasn't an external event or a sudden stroke of luck. It was the awakening of purpose, the realization that his dreams were not just personal ambitions but a calling that demanded his focus, discipline, and courage. He remembered the words of Napoleon Hill. A definite purpose backed by a burning desire is the starting point of all achievement. David realized that ambition alone could not carry him. Desire could spark a flame, but purpose would fuel the fire, keeping it alive through storms and trials. David began to see his life in a new light. Every setback, every failure, every doubt wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Each challenge had a lesson hidden inside it, a clue guiding him toward his ultimate destiny. Instead of asking, "Why me?" he started asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" With this shift, David found a new kind of energy. A quiet confidence emerged, the type that doesn't need validation from anyone else. He no longer felt the need to broadcast his dreams or seek approval. He began to understand a principle that Napoleon Hill often emphasized: the mind that focuses on purpose becomes unstoppable. David also discovered the power of clarity. Purpose gave direction to his actions. No longer did he drift aimlessly or chase opportunities at random. Every decision, every step, every sacrifice was measured against his ultimate goal. This clarity became his compass, guiding him through uncertainty and distractions. But awakening to purpose also revealed a new challenge, the responsibility that came with it. David realized that purpose is not passive. It demands action, courage, and consistency. A dream without action is like a seed that never touches the soil. To honor his purpose, he had to act relentlessly, even when progress seemed invisible, and action brought with it discipline. David started to structure his life with intention. He rose early, spent hours studying, refining his skills, and nurturing his mindset. He prioritized activities that aligned with his purpose and eliminated those that distracted or drained him. Napoleon Hill's teaching was clear: discipline is the bridge between desire and accomplishment. During this period, David also became deeply aware of the influence of his environment. He understood that the people he spent time with could either elevate his energy or drain it. He began to seek mentors, read stories of the successful, and immerse himself in knowledge that reinforced his vision. The awakening of purpose demanded the cultivation of wisdom. David began to ask himself questions that changed everything. What is my ultimate contribution? How can I use my gifts to make a difference? Am I chasing comfort or impact? Each question guided him toward a life of intentionality, a life built on principles rather than convenience. With purpose came resilience. David realized that the storms he had faced were not signs to quit. They were tests to prepare him for the weight of success. Every rejection, every obstacle, every disappointment had a hidden gift, the chance to grow stronger, wiser, and more patient. As he continued, David started to notice something remarkable. The clarity of purpose gave him the ability to make decisions without hesitation. He no longer second-guessed himself or allowed fear to dictate his actions. The world might doubt him, obstacles might appear insurmountable, but purpose anchored him. Napoleon Hill often spoke about the power of the mastermind, surrounding yourself with people who share your vision or lift you toward your potential. David began to connect with like-minded individuals, but unlike before, he no longer sought approval. He sought insight, advice, and encouragement, but only from those who had earned the right to speak into his journey. This awakening transformed David's mindset. He no longer measured his progress against others. He no longer compared himself to people who had different paths, different struggles, or different timelines. He understood that true success is personal, defined by purpose, and achieved through relentless pursuit, focus, and belief. David also began to realize the role of faith, not just belief in his abilities, but faith in the process, in the unseen, and in a higher force guiding him. Napoleon Hill emphasized faith as a form of energy that attracts opportunities, people, and resources in alignment with your goals. David felt it, a quiet, unwavering conviction that what he was building would manifest in time. Even when fear returned, even when obstacles resurfaced, purpose gave him a shield. He knew now that setbacks were temporary and that persistence backed by clarity and faith was unstoppable. His actions became intentional, his mind sharp, and his spirit resilient. And here's the reflection for you as you listen to this story. What is your purpose? Have you discovered the why behind your dreams? Are you acting with intention or merely drifting through life, hoping for opportunity to find you? The difference between those who succeed and those who falter is simple: clarity of purpose. David's story shows us that ambition without purpose is like a ship without a rudder. It moves, but it never reaches the harbor. Purpose gives direction, ignites perseverance, and builds a confidence that cannot be shaken by fear or doubt. Closing for Part 3, transition to Part 4. As David embraced his purpose, a transformation began, inside his mind, in his habits, and in his very character. The next part of his journey, the inner transformation, will reveal how belief, discipline, and a fearless mindset turn potential into unstoppable action. If you want, I can immediately create Part 4, continuing the 6-part long-form script toward the full 40-minute video. Do you want me to send Part 4 next? Part 4, the inner transformation hook. Have you ever wondered why some people seem unstoppable, as if nothing in life can shake them, while others crumble under pressure? The difference is not luck or talent, it is inner transformation. Today, we explore how the mind, when trained and disciplined, becomes the ultimate weapon for success. Story begins. David had discovered his purpose, and with it came clarity, direction, and determination. But knowing your purpose is only half the battle. The true work begins within. Success is forged not in the world around you, but in the inner world of your thoughts, beliefs, and habits. Napoleon Hill taught that what the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve, but belief alone is not enough. David realized he had to transform the way he thought, the way he reacted, and the way he handled fear, doubt, and distraction. The first step in David's inner transformation was mastering his thoughts. He discovered that uncontrolled thoughts are like weeds in a garden. They choke out growth, drain energy, and distract from the vision. Each day, David began to practice mental discipline, consciously replacing negative thoughts with constructive ones, cultivating an environment where his goals could grow. He asked himself questions that reshaped his thinking. What am I focusing on right now? Are my thoughts helping or harming my progress? Am I feeding fear or faith? The answers guided him to a life of intentional thinking. Next, David addressed habits. He knew that repeated actions shape destiny. Napoleon Hill emphasized that the right habits create the momentum needed for success. David began waking early, exercising his body, feeding his mind with knowledge, and working diligently toward his purpose. Every small action, repeated consistently, became a building block for his future. But the inner transformation went beyond habits. It required emotional mastery. David recognized that emotions can either be allies or enemies. Anger, impatience, or envy could sabotage his journey, while calmness, patience, and gratitude could fuel progress. He learned to observe his emotions without reacting impulsively, creating a mental state that aligned with his vision. Fear, the most common obstacle, became his teacher rather than his jailer. David realized that fear is often a signal pointing toward growth. Every time he felt fear, it marked an opportunity to stretch, to take a bold step, and to prove to himself that he was capable. This reframing transformed fear into a driving force rather than a stopping point. David also embraced the power of visualization, a tool Napoleon Hill recommended to program the subconscious mind. Each day, he pictured himself achieving his goals, feeling the emotions of success, experiencing the challenges overcome, and hearing the applause of accomplishment. This practice aligned his conscious and subconscious mind, making success a natural outcome of his inner state. He learned the importance of resilience, understanding that setbacks were inevitable but never final. Each failure was a lesson, each disappointment a teacher, and each struggle a test of endurance. Instead of being defeated, he absorbed every experience, learning, adapting, and growing stronger. David's inner transformation included cultivating gratitude. He recognized that every small win, every lesson, every step forward was a gift. Gratitude shifted his focus from what was lacking to what was abundant, creating a positive feedback loop of confidence, motivation, and energy. Another critical aspect of his transformation was the practice of silence. Napoleon Hill spoke of the power of controlling speech, guarding one's thoughts and words, sharing ideas only with those who earned the right to hear them, and preserving energy for action. David stopped broadcasting his ambitions prematurely, stopped seeking validation, and let his actions speak for him. Through this silence, David discovered a secret most people overlook. The energy you conserve and focus in private multiplies exponentially. Every step he took, every decision he made, carried the weight of his undivided attention. His results began to reflect the intensity of his inner work. David also surrounded himself with a new kind of influence: mentors, teachers, and peers who challenged his mind, inspired his heart, and stretched his vision. He understood that the company you keep either raises you or limits you. Inner transformation required the external reinforcement of wisdom and accountability. As he progressed, David noticed a subtle but powerful shift. Challenges that once seemed overwhelming now felt like opportunities. Criticism no longer wounded him, instead, it refined him. Pressure became a motivator, and uncertainty became a test of faith and discipline. By the end of his inner transformation, David had not just discovered his purpose, he had become the person capable of achieving it. His mind was sharp, his emotions aligned, his habits disciplined, and his spirit unshakable. He was ready to step into the world not as a dreamer, but as a doer. Reflection for the viewer: take a moment and ask yourself, are you transforming from within, or are you hoping for change to happen externally? Success is not about luck, opportunity, or even hard work alone. It is about who you become while preparing for it. The inner transformation is the invisible work that produces visible results. It is the discipline, focus, and emotional mastery that prepares you for the challenges ahead. This is the foundation upon which all extraordinary achievements are built. Closing for Part 4, transition to Part 5. In Part 5, we will explore the power of momentum, how consistent action, fueled by purpose and inner transformation, turns dreams into unstoppable reality. David's journey will show how small, focused steps accumulate into extraordinary outcomes, and how persistence and patience can turn obstacles into stepping stones. I can now create Part 5, which will focus on momentum and action, continuing the 6-part 40-minute story. Do you want me to send Part 5 next? Part 5. The power of momentum hook. Have you ever noticed how one small step, taken consistently, can lead to unstoppable progress? How a simple habit, repeated day after day, can suddenly turn your life in ways you never imagined. That's the power of momentum, and today, we'll see how it can transform dreams into reality. Story begins. David had discovered his purpose. He had mastered his inner world. Now, it was time to move, to take consistent action that would turn his vision into tangible results. Napoleon Hill often emphasized that knowledge is only potential power. It becomes power only when organized into definite plans of action and directed to a definite end. David understood this now better than ever. Momentum, he realized, begins with action, but not just any action. It starts with small, deliberate steps taken daily, steps that align with purpose and build confidence over time. David started by setting clear, achievable goals, breaking them into manageable tasks, and committing to execute them with precision. The first breakthrough came not from a dramatic change, but from the simple discipline of showing up every day. Some days were easy, others were exhausting, frustrating, and even discouraging. But David refused to stop. He learned the first law of momentum: movement breeds more movement. As he took consistent action, David began to notice a shift. Opportunities appeared in unexpected places. People who could help him showed up at the right time. Resources he hadn't anticipated became available. The universe seemed to respond to his commitment. Napoleon Hill called this principle the law of cosmic habit force. Once your mind is focused and your actions consistent, the world aligns with your effort. David also learned that momentum multiplies effort. One small win, when built upon, leads to another. Each success reinforced his confidence and his belief in his ability to achieve his goals. It was like rolling a snowball downhill. The more it moved, the faster it grew, and soon it became unstoppable. But momentum isn't just about forward motion, it's also about overcoming resistance. Challenges don't disappear, they intensify. When momentum builds, resistance fights harder, testing your commitment. David faced setbacks, distractions, and even doubt from those around him. Yet, momentum gave him the resilience to push through. The small victories had trained his mind and body to persist, even when the path seemed impossible. David discovered that momentum thrives in clarity and focus. Every day, he asked himself, which action today will bring me closer to my ultimate goal? He eliminated tasks that didn't matter, avoided distractions, and refused to invest energy in things that diluted his progress. Focus, he realized, was the fuel for momentum. Napoleon Hill also emphasized the role of emotional energy in maintaining momentum. David learned that his enthusiasm, passion, and belief in his purpose were like rockets propelling him forward. Every time he faced a challenge, he reminded himself why he started, visualized the outcome, and tapped into the energy of desire. Momentum isn't mechanical, it's fueled by emotion, belief, and relentless commitment. During this time, David began experimenting with the compound effect of action. He noticed that small efforts, repeated consistently, led to exponential results over months. A single hour of study daily, one extra call to a mentor, one thoughtful action toward a goal, it all added up. This principle, Hill taught, is what separates the average from the extraordinary. Persistence compounded over time produces results that seem impossible until they happen. David also learned the importance of celebrating milestones, quietly, intentionally, without distraction or comparison. Each achievement was a reminder that momentum works, that effort matters, and that consistent action is never wasted. But he didn't rest too long. Momentum must be maintained, nurtured, and directed with precision. He encountered moments of temptation, the desire to quit, to seek comfort, or to compare his journey to others. But by now, momentum had become a shield. Quitting would cost him the progress he had painstakingly built. Comparison would steal his focus and energy. Momentum taught him to keep moving, even when the path wasn't glamorous or immediately rewarding. David realized that momentum isn't just about achieving goals, it's about becoming unstoppable. It's about creating a life where success is inevitable because every action, every habit, every decision propels you forward. Once momentum begins, it's easier to maintain than to start. But starting requires courage, consistency, and faith. As he reflected on his journey, David saw a simple truth: momentum compounds effort, belief, and purpose into extraordinary results. Without it, even the brightest vision can fade. With it, even the smallest action can change a life. Reflection for the viewer: ask yourself, are you moving consistently toward your goals, or are you waiting for the perfect moment? Momentum doesn't wait for permission, it begins when you take action. Every step you take builds energy, confidence, and unstoppable force. Remember, small, consistent actions matter more than occasional bursts of effort. Momentum is the engine that turns potential into reality, dreams into accomplishments, and ideas into wealth and influence. Closing for Part 5, transition to Part 6. In Part 6, the final chapter, we will uncover the mastery of influence and legacy, how your transformed mind, disciplined habits, and unstoppable momentum can impact the world, create wealth, and leave a lasting mark. David's journey will show how to leverage all the principles we've learned to live a life that inspires, empowers, and achieves greatness beyond imagination. Part 6. Mastery, Influence, and Legacy. Hook. What if I told you that everything you've learned, every step you've taken, and every challenge you've overcome is preparing you for something far greater than just success? It's preparing you to leave a mark on the world, a legacy that outlives you. Today, we uncover how mastery, influence, and legacy define the life of those who truly succeed. Story begins. David had transformed his inner world, developed unstoppable momentum, and aligned his actions with purpose. Yet he realized that personal success alone was not enough. True greatness is measured not just by what you achieve, but by how your achievements empower others and shape the world around you. Napoleon Hill called this the principle of mastermind and influence, using your knowledge, character, and actions to create value far beyond yourself. The first step in mastery is self-discipline. David knew that without discipline, even the most brilliant plans fail. He disciplined his mind, his emotions, and his body, creating habits that reinforce progress rather than sabotaging it. Mastery is a continuous journey. It requires vigilance, focus, and the willingness to refine yourself daily. Next, David embraced influence. He understood that your influence grows when your actions, words, and results inspire trust, respect, and admiration. Influence is not manipulation, it is the natural outcome of consistent integrity, visible results, and the ability to uplift others. People are drawn to those who live what they preach, who demonstrate mastery in their own lives. David's influence began in small circles, family, friends, and colleagues, but it grew exponentially as he shared knowledge, helped others achieve, and offered guidance without expectation of reward. Napoleon Hill emphasized that the power of a mastermind group, associating with like-minded individuals, magnifies your potential. David intentionally connected with people who challenged, inspired, and elevated him, forming alliances that propelled everyone forward. Legacy, David realized, is the ultimate measure of success. It is not just wealth, fame, or recognition. It is the impact of your life on others, the lives you change, and the inspiration you leave behind. Legacy is the invisible footprint you leave in the hearts and minds of those who come after you. David began mentoring younger professionals, sharing the lessons of his journey, and creating systems that allowed others to grow while he continued advancing his own purpose. He understood that when you help others rise, you multiply your own success. Influence and legacy work hand in hand. The more lives you uplift, the greater your lasting impact. He also discovered the importance of giving silently and strategically. David avoided broadcasting his achievements or seeking validation for his good deeds. As Napoleon Hill taught, true power and reward often come in silence, when your work speaks for itself and your generosity multiplies unseen. Through this final stage of his journey, David faced one last truth: fear of judgment is the enemy of legacy. Many people never achieve their full potential because they fear criticism, envy, or misunderstanding. But David had learned to rise above. He focused on the value he could create rather than the opinions of others. David also recognized the power of storytelling and influence. Every lesson he had learned, every challenge he had overcome, became a narrative that others could relate to. Stories have the power to inspire action, spark belief, and transform thinking. He began sharing his journey in a way that ignited hope and courage in others, without revealing the sacred secrets of his success prematurely. The final principle David embraced was purpose-driven action. Every decision, every habit, every plan was aligned with a higher purpose, one that extended beyond personal gain. Napoleon Hill consistently emphasized that definite purpose, when combined with disciplined action, becomes unstoppable. David's work was no longer about wealth or recognition alone. It was about creating meaningful change in the lives of others while achieving his own dreams. As the years passed, David's life reflected the culmination of all the principles he had learned: clarity of purpose, inner transformation, momentum, disciplined action, and influence. His wealth grew, yes, but so did his impact. His relationships flourished. His mind became a powerhouse of innovation, problem-solving, and inspiration. And when he looked back, he realized that every struggle, every failure, and every sacrifice had been necessary to build this life. Reflection for the viewer: ask yourself, how will you use the power, discipline, and momentum you've built? Will you leave a life that benefits only you, or will you create a legacy that inspires generations? The choice is yours, but it demands courage, focus, and unwavering belief in your purpose. Your legacy begins today, not tomorrow. Every action, every habit, every decision contributes to the story that will be remembered. What you do now echoes in eternity. Will it inspire greatness or fade unnoticed? Call to action: if you found value in this journey, take action now. Subscribe to this channel for more motivational stories that will transform your mindset and fuel your ambition. Comment below and share your biggest takeaway from David's journey. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, because success, influence, and legacy are built when knowledge is shared and applied. Remember, the world doesn't just reward effort, it rewards mastery, momentum, and the lives you touch. Start today. Begin your inner transformation. Build your momentum. And create a legacy that outlives you.